A consequence is not a punishment. A punishment is given when you're angry, when you're upset, when you're feeling wrathful, and you just make stuff up. There's no good. There's no lesson to be taught there. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Mark Schillinger, founder of the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, a rite of passage initiation event for young men ages 13 to 20 to help them become more responsible for their own well-being. I'm also the founder of Challenging Teenage Sons, an organization that's dedicated to helping parents and their teen sons have more caring and cooperative relationships. Today's topic is one that most parents don't want to hear me talk about: consequences. Parents don't like to talk about this. I don't blame them. It's challenging. I often hear parents say that they don't want to do it because they don't want their children to dislike them. They don't want to get them angry. And they do them, unfortunately, when they feel agitated or angry or wrathful, which is worse. And then a consequence becomes a punishment. So I want to talk about in a few minutes the difference between a consequence and a punishment. I just want to say this: when you're agitated and you make up some shit on the spot, like give me your phone, or you can't go out with your friends tonight, or no more sleepovers, or all that stuff, your teenager perceives that as punitive. It is a punishment. Who wants to be punished? You don't. They don't either. That demonstrative energy may have worked when they were 3. It's not going to work when they're 13. So here's the deal. A consequence is not a punishment. A punishment is given when you're angry, when you're upset, when you're feeling wrathful, and you just make stuff up. There's no good. There's no lesson to be taught there. Some parents will go the opposite extreme and say, I don't want to get my kids upset or whatever, or they're going to figure it out. When I explain what a consequence is to a teenager, the word con means with, and that the word sequence means order. So there's an order going on here. With order. And I let them know that a consequence happens as a natural result of probably something they said or thought or do. I always let young people know everything that you think, that you say, that you do, probably going to come back to you. That's a consequence. And I let them know that their parents didn't make up consequences. It's built into the fabric of reality itself. And that most of life is going to have consequences. And consequences could be positive, they could be negative, they could be fair, they can be unfair. And that most of life will be dealing with a series of consequences. Like I said, they could be wonderful or horrible. They know what I'm talking about. And I recommend you explain that to your teenagers like that as well. In fact, I say, your parents didn't invent consequences. They're built into the fabric of the universe, and everybody has to learn to relax to them and then respond to them, i.e. get accountable for them, do the consequence, and move on. All right. So in my model, for those of you who've studied with me know that you pick out certain virtues, which I define as a one-word quality, like responsibility. And then you have values or definitions that match that virtue. So if you're saying, son, I'm asking you to be more responsible, that's the virtue. The value is doing things you like to do, don't like to do, until completion, and without reminders. That's simple. You repeat that over and over again. Then you might say the behavior that demonstrates that you're being responsible is when you take out the garbage on Wednesday night and you bring it back on Thursday morning into the house. That's simple. And if they don't do it, then there's a consequence, which we'll talk about how to do that in the next video. I do want to share with you this document that you should have if you've studied with me before. And if you don't, just email me at info@challengingteenagesons.com. info@challengingteenagesons.com, and I'll send this to you. So let me show you this. Some of you already have this document. Really important. So when I work with families, I have them pick out 5 or 6 virtues that they know their son needs to learn. So here are some of the more common ones that parents will pick out. There's respect, there's intelligence, there's humor, responsibility, cooperation. These are virtues that I have the parents pick out before we start dealing with consequences with their teenagers, so that they know exactly what they're going to be consequencing on. And then you can see some of the definitions that parents have come up with over the years. So if we're going to say to a young man or a young woman, we're asking you to be more cooperative. That means sharing all necessary resources to accomplish a goal. So we're asking you to help us move the furniture, or we're asking you to give some of your allowance so that we can pay for whatever it may be. That would be the behavior. So you have to have a list of consequences, which we'll talk about later, positive discipline consequences. But first, you have to have a list of the virtues and values that you know your son or daughter needs to learn in order to make it in the outside world. So these are not necessarily virtues that are yours or values that are yours. These are virtues and values and behaviors that they need to make it in the outside world. I like to call them acquired virtues. Now, all people, including you and your teenagers, are born with certain virtues. You're born with them. Like people who know me would say, oh yeah, Mark, he's really loyal. He's really persistent. He's very creative. So I was born with those virtues. Now, people who know would say, oh yeah, Mark, not very organized. He's not a good administrator. And that was true years ago. So now I've become really good at organizing my spaces and planning out my day. So those were ones that I had to acquire. So consequences need to be related to virtues that you know your teen son or daughter needs to acquire. And we'll go over more in the next video about how to do the consequences. But first, you have to know what virtues you want them to learn. And by the way, once you have those virtues, I usually will give the families I work with a chart. So they put the virtues in one column, the values or the definitions in another column, the behaviors that demonstrate that they need to develop, and a fourth column that actually says, here's the virtues that you actually have, here's the responsibility, and here's the behaviors that you've actually done from time to time that were really responsible. Because we always want to remind young people that they can be responsible, they can be cooperative. So this is a very influential way to get them to see that they can be more responsible or cooperative when you point out they've done this before. Okay, so next session, we will go over how to do consequences. If you don't have this document about virtues, values, please email me and let me know. One thing I definitely want to say, we're going to do a whole session on rewards. I'm not a big fan of rewards. Rewards don't really teach a lesson. It's not a good way to motivate. So if you're trying to avoid using consequences and then using rewards, if you do this, I'll give you that. It's not a great way to go. Should there be rewards from time to time? Of course, but really rare. So make sure you have this document in front of you, the next video, which we'll do soon, so that you can learn how to use the consequences in a very straightforward way. And believe me, I've used this with really thousands of young men now at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend and certainly in private practice. And they get it. They don't like it because now you're getting organized about how you're going to teach them how to make it in the outside world. And they'll do it. They will definitely do it. So I want to end with this one simple statement. It's never too late to move your family in the right direction. Here's the secret. You have to have a way. You can't just make stuff up. You have to have a way. And using this model, this virtues, values, and behaviors model is one part of a bigger way that I teach parents. This is a good start. Look forward to seeing you on the next video.